So a little while ago, my girlfriend really wanted to watch K-pop Demon Hunters. So I sat down and watched it with her, and it was a fun time, but I was a little unimpressed. When I hear Demon Hunters, I want to see some good action, I want to see some lore about the villains, and that all wasn't quite there. But the more I sat around and thought about the movie, and the more I noticed that my girlfriend has watched it at least a dozen times in the past 3 weeks, the more I realized that this really has something going for it. And in case I'm the first person you're hearing about K-pop Demon Hunters from, I'm not going to be the last. There's no way that this doesn't turn into a franchise with sequels and a TV series. So I think we should take note for what K-pop Demon Hunters is doing right, and for what you can do to run a K-pop Demon Hunters D&D or ttrpg session, or even a full campaign. But to talk a little bit more about the movie at first, in case you're not sold on it, I think this would be a great date night for your current partner or somebody that you're hoping to get to know better. I think it's very, very fun above anything else, especially when it gets into the relationships between the girl characters in the band Huntrix, as well as the relationship between the main character Rumi and the demon boy Jinu. This honestly has some rom-com vibes, which I think is healthy to get a little more used to. And while not quite being a musical, the music in this movie is an absolute bop, and there's a reason why it's topping Spotify charts. And because it's a thing on YouTube, the ranking that I would put the songs in is Free, Takedown, Strategy, Soda Pop, What It Sounds Like, How It's Done, Your Idol, and Golden at the top. The songs are important, and this leads into some possible musical bends you can incorporate into your D&D game. There's of course bards, but honestly I think you can go far by designing particular encounters around the different songs, much like the movie does, using the songs as the backdrop for their action pieces and emotional beats. Now, when we get into the TTRPG aspect of K-pop Demon Hunters and what a game like that would look like, typically I talk about D&D, and then at the end I say here's a different TTRPG you should play, but I want to flip that around. I don't think that standard Dungeons and Dragons is the best fit for a K-pop Demon Hunters game. For starters, the setting of K-pop Demon Hunters is very much an urban fantasy. We are in our regular modern day world, but there happens to be a secret backdrop of demons behind it that only a certain number of people know about, and that's where our heroes come in. I think that K-pop Demon Hunters has a lot more in common with the magical girl genre, which is why I think something like Thirsty Sword Lesbians might fit. And my personal recommendation, a RPG that I swear I'll play one day, Girl by Moonlight. This uses the same dice system as Forged in the Dark in order to bring together a party and play out not just combat, but emotional storytelling with intimate characters. And I think K-pop Demon Hunters has the potential to tell that story as it goes into its sequels and whatever else we're going to get from this, because it's absolutely going to be a franchise. But it's exponentially more likely that you've played D&D or are interested in D&D than that you have played Girl by Moonlight. So I'm going to frame the possibilities of this adventure through a 2024 5th edition D&D lens, and to do that we're going to start with the most important piece, our characters. Our party is a K-pop band who are also demon hunters. It's a really simple but a really effective setup. Now, you might think that building all three of these girls as bards would be the correct answer. However, I think they fall into the category of adventurers who happen to make music more so than that they are explicitly magical, inspiring bards themselves. So, I also wanted to show the differentiation between Rumi, Mira, and Zoe, because they all have different expressive personalities shown through the film. And this is probably the most appealing part to your girlfriend watching this movie, the relationship between the party of girls interacting with each other and getting to express themselves. So when I share these builds with you for the three girls, I want you to keep in mind that these are probably better used as examples of what your characters can be. I would encourage you to create your own K-pop Demon Hunter OC and incorporate it into your campaign. But without further ado, Rumi would be a great sword-wielding paladin. I used Oath of the Watchers for her subclass, and as a feat, we picked up Sentinel. Both her overprotective nature of her emotions and her teammate come to the fore, but I think this can be used for something powerful and something positive. While the other two characters are going to be humans, and most people in this world are going to be humans, Rumi has the distinction of having demon blood. The obvious way to go with this would be a tiefling. However, I think the race that is more fitting for her is the Hex blood from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Let's move on and look at Mira, my favorite girl, mainly because she has Rosa vibes. Anyway, she is going to embody our most combative demon hunter truly to a T with the ranger class subclass hunter. We're going to give her a glaive, which is atypical for the ranger. Typically, you want to give them a longbow, and you can absolutely still use that in the game, but we're going to double down with the polearm master feat for Mira and make sure that you give her proficiency, if not expertise, in intimidation. By the way, all three of these girls, despite not being built as bards, are going to have the entertainer background so that we can have good performance stats. The entertainer background does carry the implication that you're playing instruments rather than singing, but this can be easily hand-waved. Flavor is free. Let's get to our third girl, Zoe. Zoe is considered the chief writer, or at least the chief lyricist amongst the group, so I wanted to amplify her intelligence and considered making her a wizard. However, she uses her daggers extremely well, so I think it would be a crime not to make her a dual dagger wielding rogue. Rather than going the soul knife route, I went with the arcane trickster to keep some of that magical aspect alive. We can use little charm spells and stage tricks to amplify our regular knife fighting abilities. And for our feat, we'll go with Piercer. Now, let's get to our demons. For starters, this is not a heavily choreographed animated action movie. The girls mow through demons like they're playing Dynasty Warriors. And that can be a lot of fun in D&D if you don't overuse it. We're going to want some easy to kill low level enemies, and we might as well look at demons. So the CR18 mains is going to be your best option. However, if you do want a more threatening villain with the shape-shifting aspect that the soul-eating human disguised demons in the movie are shown to have, I actually think you want to step outside of the demon typology and go for a doppelganger. Now, a doppelganger is actually a fairly formidable enemy, even for our 5th level K-pop demon hunter builds that I made. If you have a few doppelgangers working together in an ambush, this is going to be a pretty good challenge. So to keep that Dynasty Warriors aspect, we are going to use a rule from 4th edition D&D and make them minions. This is going to mean we are going to drastically decrease the experience that they provide. They are going to keep all of their offensive abilities while only having 1 HP. As long as the girls hit, the demon is dead, and that's pretty true to the movie. All of the demons are going to be going after average citizens, a quandary that you can use in plenty of encounters to try to make for an escort or a protection mission instead of a typical good guys fight bad guys encounter. Now, you would normally go for a commoner for the average civilian, but every civilian in this movie is a K-pop stan, so I think using the cultist stat block is going to be appropriate. You could even have some extra fun with this by using the various cultist builds from the Mordenkainen books to show how different K-pop stans can rep for their band, whether that's Huntrix or the SAJA boys. The core conflict of the film comes about when the demons decide to fight fire with fire and use their shape-shifting abilities combined with a couple levels in Bard themselves to create an evil K-pop boy band. This is great. This is hilarious. This is also a familiar tactic to many dungeon masters out there. If the average monster in the dungeon isn't doing it, field your own team of rival adventurers and see what happens. I'm not going to do specific builds for all of the minor SAJA boys. We have Mystery, Romance, Abby, and Baby. You can do that if you want to. I'm not going to because I think I found the perfect stat block for these guys, and that is going to be the Incubus. Now, in previous iterations, the Incubus and Succubus were the same monster, but basically just gender fluid, and I think that's very cool. The succubus is a classic seducing monster, and that seems to fit the SAJA boys, weakening your opponent with charm and disguise self effects before you lean in for a draining kiss. And this ties in to the SAJA boys' MO of wanting to eat your soul. However, I am more compelled by the 2024 Incubus. The Incubus and the Succubus are still related, keeping an ability where after a long rest, they can transform. And this has nothing to do with their gender presentation, although it's implied through the art that they are still very much a gender fluid monster. But in the movie and in this campaign, they are going to present as men. And the Incubus preys on your desires. They are more of a psychic demon than a physical demon. And I think not only is that a less triggering and more safe villain to put in your possibly rom-com adventure, I think that it is more dangerous and more threatening and makes for a more fun conflict. Now, those are the regular SAJA boys, our background four. You're going to have to do a different build for our main man, Jinu. And for Jinu, I am going to use the Oni. Quite challenging, but also quite clever, possibly able to be turned to your side. The Oni has a suite of spells, including a shapeshift ability. And Jinu also has the distinction of having a couple of animal companions. Derpy and Sussy are especially important to my girlfriend, who has been making sketches of them, more so than she's making sketches of the other characters. She wanted me to let you know that they are actually an ode to a motif in classic Korean paintings depicting a tiger and a magpie. So when we switch that into D&D terms, I think Sussy is pretty obviously an imp, despite the fact that this is pulling from the lawful evil and devil side of things rather than the demon version that would be a quasit. The imp is clever, a recon element who can stand out of the way of fights and turn into a raven, which is our closest corollary to a magpie in D&D. When we get around to Derpy, our demon tiger, I immediately thought of the Shusava. However, Derpy is so whimsical and supportive in nature, unlike the vicious Susava, that drove me towards the Sphinx of Wonder in the new 2024 Monster Manual. However, it was pointed out to me that this tiger is not only a motif in paintings, but is a classic stone statue as a guardian in front of temples and other Korean buildings. And in the movie, Derpy is capable of entering into these forms similar to a meld into stone spell in D&D. So he has elements of a gargoyle or a golem going for him. I don't know where to fall on Derpy. I think, honestly, if any character in the film deserves their own build, it's Derpy. The big bad of our campaign to overtake the SAJA boys and save the Han Moon is Guima. Guima should be some kind of demon lord. However, the actual demon lords in 5th edition D&D are quite high in CR, and I want something that our girl squad would actually be capable of taking down with a little help from their cultists as well as Janu. So I am going for the Elder Brain. The Elder Brain is a typical Mind Flayer or a Lithid boss, but I think his suite of psychic abilities and domination effects matches very well. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about traps. Not traps in the dungeon, but traps of watching rom-coms with your girlfriend, looking at the amazingly hot guys that the girls fawn over in the film, recognizing the equally, if not more hot, real-life K-pop boy bands that they drew inspiration from, and catching the not-so-subtle hints of your girlfriend showing you lots of reels of a particular K-pop star named Felix who has very nice style and a very nice deep voice, and realizing that you don't compare to these men. Any guy can look at these and want to be some kind of hot soul-sucking demon. But I don't think that's at all the message of the film. If anything, it shows the danger of this kind of idol worship and aspiration. Lots of guys want to be Abby. All of us can be Bobby. Bobby is fun. He's funny. He's supportive of his girls. He's not the most confident. He never picks up a sword and fights the demons, and yet he's still a part of the fight and a part of these girls' lives in a very positive way. I think this is a much better aspiration, particularly for the geek boys out there who YouTube tells me comprises 96% of my audience. Now, let's talk about your actual adventure or one-shot based on K-pop Demon Hunters. One of the strengths of the movie is that its lore is kind of inspecific and incomplete. This gives you the creative license to do what you want for your sequel. So, I'm just going to share my example of what I would do if my girlfriend and her girlfriends wanted to truly run this adventure. I would say that Huntrix are going to go on a world tour, and their first stop is America. There's all kinds of fun you can have with this concept, including all of the potential demons that could pop up that are specifically American. I think we need more Confederate ghosts to kill, personally, and I think I think that combining that country aspect along with the bro country aspects of modern music that is a problem, and creating a villain that is going to be patterned after Jelly Roll, a man who started out with noble intentions but is now a plague on the pop music industry, featuring himself on increasingly more lazy features in songs, is now trying to get onto the Huntrix album, and they might be going along with it. He is going to provide a false mark for their demon hunting powers, and that is going to be a Hex Girls inspired rock band. But I am going to use an actual in real life band, similar to how the singers from Twice were used in the actual K-pop Demon Hunters movie. The inspiration for this rival party is going to be Danny, Ale, and Pal from The Warning. If you haven't heard of The Warning, go check them out right now. They're an extremely good rock act, particularly in their live shows. This is going to function as not only the same rival party dynamic we had going on in the original movie with the SAJA boys, but it is going to lead into a more girl power dynamic as they realize that the Warning, or the Hex Girls, or whatever you're calling them in your game, are not their enemies, but are united in the fight against demons, just with a different Western bend to their music and their fighting styles. The object of the campaign will be to realize this alliance, meet it, and take down Jelly Roll. So that's pretty much all my thoughts on K-pop Demon Hunters and its use in a TTRPG. I think it's a cute movie you should check out, and I think there's actually some aspects you can learn from it, not from an in-depth character analysis or storyboarding perspective, but from the perspective of remembering that family movies and D&D campaigns can just be about fun. However, there is one other artist I really want to talk to you about, and that's my girlfriend known as Opalyn Fox. Not only has she been sketching the characters from K-pop Demon Hunters as a fun project while she watches the movie on repeat in the background, and yes, Derpy and Sussy are highly featured, she also drew the dragon head that helped kick off my channel. She also makes a lot of other drawings, typically revolving around fantasy creatures and especially dragons with flowers. If you want to check her out, I'm going to leave links in the description for her Instagram and her Ko-Fi. Any support or just telling her in the comments that her art is really cool would be really appreciated. Thanks, babe. Love you. Very much looking forward to the next time we get to play in our D&D duet campaign, which is going incredible. I hope all of you have a Nat 20 day. Bye-bye.